Oh, I've got big bands, and she's got big bands, and he's got big bands, but we've got the biggest bands of them all. Hello, I'm Notes, and I loves me some new spins on old materials. And I'm not just talking about covers, I'm talking about completely new imaginings of old songs. Taking that new song in a completely different direction. And that's just what Gavin Harrison did, the drummer for Porcupine Tree, with his latest effort, Cheating the Polygraph. Gavin is still one of my favorite drummers of our time. He just has that that innate born gift that comes with complex time signatures and adding just enough flair to make a really juicy tune. But with Porcupine Tree not putting out any new music, and with Steven Wilson finding other drummers to fill in the skins, it gave Gavin the opportunity to try new things with some older material. And thus we have Cheating the Polygraph, a big band jazz version of some of our favorite Porcupine Tree songs. It's actually really interesting. For those music aficionados out there, this will be a real treat for you. It's got that jazzy big band feel while using our favorite Porcupine Tree tunes, such as Cheating the Polygraph, the middle section of Anesthesize, What Happens Now, as well as Hate Song. These songs are really begging to be played as that kind of a jazzy feel to them already. So submerging them into this form just kind of made sense. Now, some of the more Steven Wilson centered songs, such as Trains, Lazarus, Time Flies, and almost all the PT stuff before In Absentia isn't really here because Gavin really wasn't part of the band at that point. It's just stuff that Gavin has helped out with since then. Which, on the one hand, makes sense. You really can't have Gavin going off and doing all the stuff that Chris Maitland did, the drummer before Gavin. But at the same time, I would have loved to see what his impression of some of these songs were, especially like Dislocated Day and Tintro Brass, really giving those that big jazzy feel. So getting on to what's actually found on this album, I really love that this album just isn't a carbon copy of a lot of those Porcupine Tree songs done in a big band vein. I mean, you go to a record store and you can find string quartets or different variations of, say, a Pink Floyd album or a Tool album, where it's mainly the exact same song, just done with different instruments. No, this album really takes those songs for a walk in that big band and jazzy feel. So when I first heard this album, I had to constantly look back to see what song they were actually playing, because much like jazz, the roots kind of implied in a certain sense, where they just go off and you're like, okay, so when are they going to come back? Which I loved. I love that just going off on its own little tangent. For example, I was surprised to see The Start of Something Beautiful was on this album even after I had listened to the album 3 or 4 times, and it completely changed its shape. It took on a whole new groove from the original song. A real highlight on this album for me is that classic song, Hate Song, with Halo kind of smashed right into it. It stays true to the spirit of Hate Song, and I just love, I believe it's a glockenspiel, with the wooden paddles, as opposed to the xylophone, which uses the metal. It just lays down the foundation for the song to really open up, and that's what I always loved about Hate Song. Even though Hate Song was never really my favorite Porcupine Tree song, I love the fact that it just lays the groundwork for it to open up, and that's really where it shines on this album, just having that open up. Now, obviously, this album isn't for everybody. If you're not into a big band or you're not into the jazzy experimentation, you're not really going to dig this album too much. And on top of that, if you're not a really big Porcupine Tree fan, a lot of these songs are really going to feel strange to you. But if you do love big band, or you are a huge fan of Porcupine Tree, I would definitely suggest giving this one a spin. There are no lyrics found on this album, or any vocals for that matter, so if your main drive from Porcupine Tree were the lyrics, then you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed because there's no lyrics. On the plus side, unlike a lot of those orchestrated or purely instrumental version of songs, it's not being replaced by either a violin or a flute or some other thing that's just filling the gap. There's a lot of other things filling that gap. If you also like hearing different takes on old songs and enjoy that big band feel, this is going to be an amazing album for you. It's being organized and orchestrated by one of the members of Porcupine Tree who helped develop these songs, so it keeps it in that familiar touch. It's got that very jazzy drumming feel, so again, keep that in mind when approaching this album. It's very drum heavy and very orchestrated that way. There's pretty much no 4/4 time signature in this, as most of the big band jazzy feels go, which I love and I like. I love to see different people's interpretations of these songs, but I can see this getting on a couple people's nerves. So again, approach it with that. Really, for what it's worth, it's a solid effort by Gavin, and I love this new kind of approach to the music. It's really, really well done, and I applaud him for trying something new. In one of the interviews promoting this, he said, go with any project with a big idea, and this was a great, grand idea, and I applaud him for that. And that's about it for this album. Have a spin, have a listen to it yourself, and let me know what you guys think about it. And for homework, what was your favorite new spin on an old material? A lot of artists are doing that, and what was your favorite new spin on it? And that's it. Notes out.